For this project, we're going to need fabric, measuring tape, thread, scissors, pins, and some paper. Here's just to show the thickness of the fabric. For this skirt, I used a cheaper fabric to mock up the pattern. I made sure this fabric had a similar weight. I draped the fabric on the mannequin and pinned the side seams and 2 back darts. You could do this pinning on yourself as well. I then folded it over at the top to create my desired waistline. It's important that your side pinnings are straight as well as your back darts. You're now going to use your scissors to trim away all the excess fabric and determine the length of your skirt. We're now ready to cut the front piece on an angle. This will determine how open your wrap skirt is at the front. When making this cut, it's important to remember that it's going to be mirrored by another piece that will be attached to the other side. We now want to duplicate that front piece, so laying it on our fabric and cutting out a second version of it. And now with 2 front pieces, we're ready to pin our skirt back together. Here showing that those 2 front pieces are equal size. We're now going to tear some strips out of our fabric that we're going to wrap around as the frill as well as the straps on the top. This is to show what I mean by strap on the top. And we're now ready to sew our 2 side seams and our 2 darts in the back. For creating our frill hem, I'm going to attach 2 of the strips that we just cut. The reason I'm attaching 2 is because I wanted a little more length to create more frill or ruching for the hem. Setting my machine to a large stitch and a high tension, I created my ruching. I didn't backstitch at the end, so I could pull the thread and get my desired amount of ruching. I was now ready to pin the piece I just created along the hem. I trimmed away a little bit of the excess, and I was happy with the amount of gathering, so I was ready to sew it on. I trimmed the frilled hem at an angle like this. This is all up to preference, so you can add more or take away the amount of frill at this stage. Now taking a slightly thinner strip of fabric, I'm ready to sew on the tie at the top. The length and width of this piece is up to you. My skirt was now done in the mock fabric and I was ready to turn it into a pattern. You can now use these pieces as your pattern or you can transfer them over onto paper. If you're transferring them over, keep in mind seam allowance. Having them in paper makes it a little easier to cut out with your real fabric, but either will do. I was now ready to use my pattern on my silk fabric. Now that I have all of my pieces cut out in the silk, I'm ready to sew the final version. I'm going to start by attaching the 2 strips to create the gathered hem. I'm going to fold it over just by once and do the smallest hem possible. We're then going to use a basting stitch along the unhemmed side of this strip to create the gathers. Again, just like we did for the mock skirt. I'm now ready to sew my side seams and my back darts. As you can see here, I created 2 little slits to mark where I'm going to put my darts, and put a pin to show how far down they go. Now we're going to take the ruffle hem piece that we created and attach it to the bottom of our skirt. Once we've pinned that piece, we're ready to sew it. The next piece we're going to attach is the tie piece at the top of our skirt, making sure to attach right sides together. We're now ready to fold that strap piece over onto itself, tucking in the raw edge, and pinning along the seam line, making sure to catch all the layers of fabric. Once we have the strap all pinned and folded at the edges where it's not attached to the skirt, we can then iron that piece. And here's the example of folding it over on the edges where it's not attached to the skirt. We're then ready to sew where we just pinned, along the whole line of the strap. As you can see here, I'm sewing right along the seam to help hide the stitches. For a cleaner finish, we're going to fold over the edges of the straps twice and sew across. Trim away the excess thread and you're all done.